And now, in studio, bringing his Midwest values from the Show Me State to the land of San Diego. He's a triple threat, licensed as an attorney, mortgage broker, and a top producing realtor who's crushing the competition. Here to deliver you what's happening in the trenches of the market. Your host, Michael Gaddis.
Thank you for tuning in to the Michael Gaddis Show on AM 1170 The Answer. I am your host, Michael Gaddis. I am a top-producing real estate broker, a licensed California attorney, and an NMLS licensed mortgage broker. I truly am San Diego's real estate expert. I am here every Wednesday night at 8 p.m. to discuss anything and everything related to San Diego real estate. As always, I welcome any questions or issues that you would like to hear me discuss on the show. There are several ways that you could contact me. First, you could call me at 888-242-2272. That's 888-242-2272. You can also email me at michael@michaelgaddis.com, or you can visit my website at www.michaelgaddis.com. That's michaelgaddis.com. America is a fertile ground for entrepreneurs to take innovative ideas from concept to reality. Often they create wealth, and with that comes the danger of becoming a target for lawsuits. America is a litigious society. Disgruntled shareholders, former employees, dissatisfied tenants, malicious competitors have potential to seek compensation through a lawsuit that could impact the value of the company, your home, your personal wealth, and the intellectual property you think is beyond reach. Insurance is simply not enough if you haven't taken specific measures to protect those assets. Our special guest today is Kevin Day, founder and principal at the law firm of Day & Associates, one of the top 2 asset protection firms in the country, focused on strictly asset protection law and complex high net worth issues. Kevin Day is a well-respected speaker at business tax planning, estate planning, and investment planning conferences throughout the United States. He is the author of 5 books in the area of estate and tax planning and lawsuit protection, both domestic and international. I have asked him here today to talk specifically about practical strategies for real estate owners, premarital trusts, which are infinitely stronger than prenuptial agreements in the event of a divorce, and basic lawsuit protection for business owners or high net worth individuals or families. I will be asking him about the pros and cons of using domestic lawsuit-proof trusts, offshore trusts, and privacy companies. Certainly those with high net worth already know they need asset protection. Their wealth alone makes them a target to malicious lawsuits. So they seek experts like Day & Associates out. Small entrepreneurs and real estate investors can also put lawsuit protection strategies in place without an offshore trust and with limited expense, and I want to examine it here with you today. You can learn more about Day & Associates by visiting day-law.com, or you could call them at 858-755-6672. Kevin, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Michael. Thanks for having me on.
Well, why don't you tell us a little bit first about how you got involved in estate planning and specifically asset protection?
That's a long one. It was circuitous. I have MBA in international business. Started out with Chinese, and I was doing international contracts. I had a partner at the time that did estate planning, and we had a guy with a real high liability toy. And he came to us and said, hey, there's these things called offshore trusts. I went to this attorney down in Florida, and he was kind of like a little bit of your normal SOB attorney, and didn't want to go do business with him. My CPA hunted it out, and these offshore trusts are legal. There's special IRS reporting for them. And if you want to be a guinea pig, I'll be your first client. And we did a bunch of research and became experts in the area. And unfortunately, the fancy offshore trusts are still trusts. And so I became a trust lawyer, never intended to be. I wanted to be an international contracts guy.
Well, I'm going to tell you, a lot of what you're talking about sounds foreign to me, and I went to law school. So, I mean, why don't you tell everybody just generally, let's talk a little bit about trust. You keep throwing the word trust and estate planning around. Let's start there. What's the basic of what's involved with a trust and the basics of estate planning?
Excellent. A trust is a very old instrument. The only area of law older than trust law is real property law, which started our whole legal system, really. And trusts have been around since the 10th century. Until about the 30s, they were always irrevocable trusts. However, all of our listeners are mostly familiar with revocable living trusts, what are referred to as revocable living trusts. And trusts are a way to create a legally recognized third-party owner. With the irrevocable trust, it's made immediately. With the revocable living trust, it's really doing it so upon my death, I have somebody that replaces me and has a life beyond my death. Otherwise, let's say with a revocable living trust, if you die without a trust, you have to get government permission to do everything, and that's done through the probate court. Lawyers get 4 to 6% by statute, 4 to 6% of the estate for prosecuting that probate, and even a simple estate, $500,000, $600,000, $700,000 estate, some lawyer's going to get $30,000. Would you rather spend $2,500 and avoid probate and get the same people to be your administrators that you paid a lawyer $30,000 to get the government to stamp who could be your executor or replacement?
So trusts are what you're talking about are not just for the super wealthy; they're for pretty much everybody.
Everybody. Just regular estate planning trusts, which our firms do, wills and trusts. Everybody's heard that, hey, if I'm a smaller estate, I can avoid probate. Well, there are procedures for abbreviated probate, but the thresholds are really low. Most states are $30,000, $40,000. In California, it's $150,000 of all property or $50,000 of real property, whichever is leased. I don't think you can own an outhouse in San Diego County and have it be less than $50,000. You know, you're going to have a probate.
Right. Well, let me ask you a question about this. You know, you specialize in asset protection. Now that sounds, pretty important. How does that relate to what is asset protection, and how does it relate to a homeowner?
Okay. Lawsuit protection or asset protection it might not be making you lawsuit proof. That word is thrown around a lot. But a good asset protection plan means if you got sued, you're going to be in a better position than not having the structure. And so what we're trying to do is separate the wealth and low liability of a client away from high liability. High liability, in our legal system, you can't stop anybody from suing you for anything. They can trump it up. You could be in Europe and they can sue you for the bar fight last night. And you're going to actually, because of the way our legal system works, you're going to have to spend $30,000, $40,000 just to get out of that stupid thing to prove up that you weren't there. So our legal system, although it's very good in most respects, has some significant flaws. So people have to take it into their own hands to use legal remedies to isolate their home, their rental properties, or the equity in the properties from tenants and employees and people that can sue.
So what type of people should be really interested in learning more about asset protection? Is it, obviously business, it sounds like business owners, but like people like doctors, lawyers, is that what are those the types of people that need to really be concerned about it?
We have a full breadth. Business owners somehow, without being taught, are acutely aware of their high liability. That's the privilege of creating the economy, is that you have a service or product out in the world, you have employees. So either the service product brings some liability, employees, a disgruntled employee causes a problem, or if you have enough customers just rolling the dice, you're going to have somebody that wants to create a lawsuit. So business owners know. High net worth W-2 people often don't understand that they end up becoming entrepreneurs. After their creature comforts are satisfied, they go, hey, all the people that I know that are really wealthy have real estate, so I better get some. And they might have 17 properties and they still just say, I'm a W-2 employee. They don't realize they're running a business. And that entrepreneurial thing that doesn't transfer to them, that they have high liability to those tenants.
Well, is it possible that a lot of people think because they have insurance policies in place that might be enough, that they don't need to go beyond that and get asset protection?
Absolutely. A lot of people, and we'd never tell anybody to go bare, but it's an outrageous expense to have too much insurance. And in fact, there are plenty of lawyers that target. The more insurance you have, you end up becoming more of a target. So you want a moderate and good insurance policy, but literally, if a boiler blows up and there's 4 people in the home that are really harmed, your $1.5 million insurance is going to cover one life. You need to get real lawsuit protection, not just insurance.
Well, we're talking to Kevin Day of Day & Associates, and when we get back from the break, we're going to talk more about asset protection and what it entails and the different types of asset protection. You're listening to The Michael Gaddis Show on AM 1170, The Answer.
Intelligent, conservative, AM 1170, The Answer.
Hey, Craig Sewing here, consumer activist. You hear me every day at 6 p.m. on KCBQ. My goal is to help you win in any marketplace. One of the things that applies to every single person that listens to our show and that's listening right now, you have a credit score, and more likely than not, it has inaccuracies on it. Nobody seems to understand how these things work. Here's what I can tell you. I have a credit expert that's a partner in the show named Aran Sinai. I call him the credit magician. If you've ever had any issues with your credit, you want to get your scores up, maybe a foreclosure, bankruptcy, or maybe just a collection. The city of San Diego can send parking tickets to collections. Crazy. Well, bad credit's a choice. Reach out to Aran Sinai. How do you do that? You go to our website, AmericanDreamElite.com. AmericanDreamElite.com. Hit me up on the contact form. I'll connect you with Aran. AmericanDreamElite.com. If you've ever had any credit issues whatsoever, AmericanDreamElite.com.
Who would you rather have representing you when buying or selling your home? A real estate agent or a real estate and mortgage broker who is also a licensed California attorney? To sell your home for top dollar, or if you're facing a forced sale due to divorce, probate, short sale, or bankruptcy, you'll need the added value and marketing services of a realtor with the knowledge and experience of a licensed attorney and mortgage broker on your side.
Hi, I'm Michael Gaddis. I give you more, but it doesn't cost you more.
Visit MichaelGaddis.com. That's Michael, Gaddis.com. DRE 0146543 and MLS 28001.
Hi, this is AJ Gupta from the Gupta Legal Center. You've probably seen us on the American Dream TV show and the Craig Sewing radio show. We're honored to be featured as the exclusive real estate attorney and honored to be trusted by Craig and all of his top producing realtors. Our office was also featured as a super lawyer representing California's top 5% of attorneys. You may not know whether you need an attorney or not. My suggestion is you kind of have an idea whether there's a problem or a question. So I suggest if you don't know whether you need an attorney or not, give us a call. We're happy to pick up the phone, give you a call back, figure out what it is that you need to have addressed. If we can't or don't know the issue, then we can definitely point you in the right direction. Our phone number is 619-866-3444. That's 619-866-3444, and that's GuptaLC.com. GUPTALC.com.
Welcome back to the Michael Gaddis Show on AM 1170, The Answer. I am your host, Michael Gaddis of MichaelGaddis.com. My guest today is Kevin Day of Day & Associates Incorporated, one of the country's top asset protection attorneys. For more information on Kevin Day, please visit day-law.com. Kevin, before the break, we were talking about asset protection. Basically, what are the traditional forms of asset protection, and what is the typical advice someone would get from an estate planning attorney or a business lawyer when asked about lawsuit protection?
Yeah, the typical answer, and it's a good one, is how many properties do you have? How many businesses do you have? And we're going to give you, 7 different LLCs or companies of some sort. And the idea is to put eggs in different baskets. Absolutely. You don't want a lawsuit on one of the properties coming and taking your home or your retirement account or your other properties. So you want eggs in different baskets. But the presumption is you will lose that property if the lawsuit is beyond your insurance limits. And there can be catastrophic events that do that. We have strategies that can protect the properties within any particular corporate entity. And also corporate entities only protect you or protect the assets outside of that business. So if somebody's suing you personally, they get to come down the chain of the things that you own. There's some ways to slow them down, but if somebody gets a judgment against you personally, they'll ultimately be taking the assets that are within those companies, and we can avoid that as well.
Well, let's get really into the meat of lawsuit protection. What does someone really need to do to get lawsuit proofed?
It's a simple idea, not necessarily a simple answer, but the answer to lawsuit protection is ownership. If you're not the owner, a creditor can't take it. If you drive my car, I give you my car, it's titled in my name, and you drive it for 20 years, and I continue to pay everything on it, you get a lawsuit. They cannot take my car, even though you have all the use and enjoyment. So the idea about irrevocable trusts, lawsuit protective trusts, is that they are not just a separate third-party owner from you, because corporations and LLCs are also, but it's an ultimate owner. In our legal system, there's only two ultimate owners: a flesh and blood human, you, no one owns you, and no one owns an irrevocable trust. It is the owner. That's why they're one of the main reasons why they're lawsuit proof. So corporations, LLCs, limited partnerships can own things like a human can. They can enter into contracts like a human, but they are not an ultimate owner. They have to have an owner. They have to have a shareholder or a person. So we can carve out a reservoir that certain parts of your estate can never be taken.
You're listening to the Michael Gaddis Show on AM 1170, The Answer. My guest today is Kevin Day of day-law.com, one of San Diego's and the country's top asset protection attorneys. So let's talk a little bit more about irrevocable. What does it mean to be irrevocable? I mean, what does it really mean? Because I hear, revocable trust, irrevocable trust. How can you really simplify what the difference is, and what are the advantages and disadvantages between a revocable and an irrevocable trust?
Revocable means changeable, and because it's changeable, the court says it's not going to be lawsuit proof. There's a couple of different reasons why they're not lawsuit proof, but that's the main one. So you're really setting up a revocable living trust so that you avoid probate and you save a bunch of money and can also have tax advantages. A will can detail how you want things to be distributed, but you have to pay a lawyer to go to probate court to get the judge to approve that will. A trust avoids probate. You're getting, with the magic language that our legislature has approved, you don't have to go to the court to get the same thing done. So the trust, really, the revocable trust, becomes irrevocable, so it is a separate owner after you die, and then you have a successor trustee. Irrevocable trust means unchangeable, and it should always be a red flag to anybody when they say, hey, an irrevocable trust is the answer. So it depends on how much control or ownership you're willing to give away. And it also depends on whether it is a typical children's trust or an offshore trust or a domestic trust. They have different definitions of what irrevocable is.
Well, you mentioned a couple of things in that last answer. One is you mentioned that an irrevocable trust is not changeable. And then you mentioned, you use the term loss of control. How much loss of control do you have in an irrevocable trust?
A classic estate planning irrevocable trust, we'll call it a children's trust, although that's a statutory thing that's fairly narrow, but for our listeners, it's appropriate. So in a typical nuclear family, mom and dad are going to set up a trust for their children and grandchildren. They will irrevocably give away all ownership and control at the trust level. They cannot be a trustee. They cannot be a beneficiary. That's the traditional trust until 1988 in the United States. That's how you got an irrevocable trust or lawsuit-proof trust. That does not mean you cannot be the manager of underlying companies. And so somebody like Walton with Sam Walton with Walmart used an FLP, putting, forgotten exactly the percentages. He kept a very small percentage as a general partner, so he had dictatorial control. And if you put, let's say, the 98% into an irrevocable trust for your children, they legally own it. The estate is growing for them, but as general partner, you get to buy and sell and pay yourself what you want to be paid with assets that are no longer yours.
Well, but during the break, we were talking a little bit about offshore trusts. What's the power behind an offshore trust?
One of the biggest things for entrepreneurs, well, the U.S. not only signed, but we were one of the main proponents of the Hague Convention on Trusts. So in 1988 was the first time where the definition of what irrevocable was changed. You could have a trust if you went to a jurisdiction outside the United States and have a trust where you set it up but named yourself as a beneficiary. That was huge for entrepreneurs, particularly high net worth individuals. Oh, I can put a $16 million factory in there and I'm legally not the owner anymore, and it's now divorce proof and lawsuit proof and all these other good things. And so because the U.S. signed the Hague Convention on Trust, U.S. persons can now treaty shop or shop in other jurisdictions. And so their definition of irrevocability is what makes it lawsuit proof. The beauty of it from a U.S. point of view is that, treaties, conventions, and presidential decrees are high law. They're superior to federal and state and municipal law. Only thing higher is Constitution. That is powerful stuff under U.S. law.
Well, you're listening to the Michael Gaddis Show on AM 1170 The Answer. Again, my guest today is Kevin Day of day-law.com, one of San Diego's top, and the country's top asset protection attorneys. When you're talking about offshore trusts and things like that, it kind of sounds like maybe that type of a strategy is only beneficial to somebody with high net worth. Is that the truth?
They're not inexpensive, but the threshold is lower than you think. If somebody did not have real property, they didn't have a business, they don't have machines that can take arms off, they don't have 20-year-old delivery drivers, all these things that we can amass as high liability. If somebody had liquidated everything, they have no employees, no tenants, but they're at $4 million or more, we would highly encourage them to educate themselves about their use, because most of your creature comforts are taken care of at that point, and your estate starts to grow exponentially, and you don't want to start all over. Somebody at $2 million or $3 million that has a little sandwich shop where one day of bad food will devastate not only your restaurant but your home and everything else should consider it. So at $2 million to $4 million, I'll take the time to educate people, give them white papers, give them time, so they can see if it applies. Somebody under $2 million that has a high liability business, there are domestic versions that we can use.
Well, let me ask you, when you have a client come to you and he or she says, I want to talk to you about asset protection, how do you begin that process of determining what type of strategy to use? What type of materials do you need, and how do you analyze to know whether this particular strategy is going to work or maybe a different strategy?
We have an intake questionnaire to find out about, how much real property they have, what kind of businesses they may or may not have, what their savings are, and then we'll have a face-to-face or telephonic conference to find out where they personally see their liabilities coming from. And somebody might just need a picket fence to keep the neighbor boy from running through their rose garden, but they might need a moat, or they might need a wall, or they might need all of that, a fence, a wall, a moat, and some slingshots coming back. And so depending on their needs, we'll develop a plan. And also, it's wonderful if you can get a total picture and implement it all one time, but often we're creating a roadmap so that they don't waste money building little parts that are going to not be useful down the road. If we know what the ultimate perfect picture is for them from an estate planning and lawsuit protection point of view, then we can decide what do you implement first if they have to grow into it.
Because it sounds like to me, as I listen to you, that, there's a lot of incidents which can happen to, the more wealthy people, but it can also happen to the average person who just happens to own maybe a rental property or something like that. And that can leave them exposed. And if people are relying strictly on insurance alone, from what I'm gathering, that might not be enough to really protect somebody the way that they have the potential to do.
Exactly. We could, with somebody who owns a couple of pieces of property, there's a variety of different things that we can do, but we can certainly use an irrevocable domestic trust either to hold real property away from a higher liability business, or if the real property and the tenants are the liability, we don't want to lose the equity in that company. And we have a strategy, equity stripping strategy. We can create something that will lawsuit-proof the properties within a real estate holding LLC.
So you have strategies for people no matter what their income level is. You have different levels of strategies for each person. So it doesn't matter whether they're, at a lower income level or at a very high income level. It would behoove somebody to contact someone like you just to say, am I exposed? And if I'm exposed, what can I do? Exactly.
We have things that might just be $2,000, but to tell you the truth, for $4,000 to $5,000, we could create, it would be domestic, obviously, but we could create something that would really be lawsuit protective of somebody's estate. And if you think about it, $5,000 one time with maybe a couple $100 annual maintenance fees on some business entities underlying the company, that's cheap insurance, real cheap insurance, to get real lawsuit protection for all the stuff that insurance will never cover.
Well, a lot of times people think, $4,000 or $5,000, that's a lot of money. They're thinking that until they're under the gun and somebody's coming after them. They're like, boy, if I just would have spent $4,000 or $5,000, I wouldn't be in this mess right now.
Yeah, $4,000 or $5,000 would be a comprehensive plan. If somebody needed something to grow into, we might start with a little LLC, but the objective is to equity strip to your own estate plan instead of to Bank of America.
Well, after the break, we're going to talk more specifically about asset protection as it relates to real estate owners. We're talking to Kevin Day of Day & Associates of day-law.com. You're listening to the Michael Gaddis Show on AM 1170, The Answer.
Saying, I don't know, is no longer acceptable. This is AM 1170, The Answer.
Hey, San Diego, Craig Sewing here. Look, one of the things that nobody likes to hear is that they got bugs in their home. Almost all California homes have some sort of bug or termite problem. It's not a cool thing to have bugs running around your house, so I'm going to help you get rid of them. I want you to connect with Lloyd's Pest Control. These are our good friends of the Craig Sewing Show. They can help you. They've been in business, putting bugs out of business since 1931. They'll do a free inspection for you. If you want to get your biggest investment checked out, make sure there's not bugs or termites, go to LloydPest.com. That's LloydPest.com and get a free inspection of your real estate today.
Did you know that you can make up to 6 times more with vacation rentals than with long-term leasing? By investing in vacation rentals and partnering with Vacasa, you can cash your check while we do all the work. Vacasa is a full-service vacation rental management company. We handle everything from guest marketing and booking to home maintenance and security. If you want more information about Vacasa, please visit online or call 503-305-4520. Again, that's 503-305-4520. Or visit Vacasa.com. That's Vacasa.com. Vacasa, vacation rentals made easy.
Hey, Craig Sewing here. There's no shortage of commercials out there, whether it's TV, radio, even social media. And heck, I even saw an infomercial for solar. You see it everywhere these days. Well, it's because solar is important. It can reduce your electric bill. It's good for the planet. And it's just a great thing to do with your home. It can add value to it. However, there is so much misinformation. Just because somebody is out there advertising does not make them a reliable source. I want to introduce you to my good friends with Baker Electric Solar. The owner, Mike Teresa, I've got to know him really well. This is the only company that I would recommend for you to reduce your electric bill through solar energy. Such a smart move. It's time to do it. Here's how you reach out to them. Baker Electric Solar. BakerElectricSolar.com. BakerElectricSolar.com. They will talk to you for free. They'll give you an assessment, and they will help you reduce that electric bill. And again, this is the only group that I trust. BakerElectricSolar.com.
Who would you rather have representing you when buying or selling your home? A real estate agent or a real estate and mortgage broker who is also a licensed California attorney? To sell your home for top dollar, or if you're facing a forced sale due to divorce, probate, short sale, or bankruptcy, you'll need the added value and marketing services of a realtor with the knowledge and experience of a licensed attorney and mortgage broker on your side.
Hi, I'm Michael Gaddis. I give you more, but it doesn't cost you more.
Visit MichaelGaddis.com. That's MichaelGaddis.com. DRE 0146543 and MLS 28001.
Going through divorce can be very stressful. It is important to know your rights. I'm attorney Ilona Antonian. I'm a certified family law specialist. For over a decade, I've been helping San Diegans win their divorce and custody cases. If you have questions about divorce, property division, child or spousal support, modification of orders, or find yourself in a custody battle, please call us at 619-696-1100. Find us online at expertdivorcelaw.com, where you can download our free divorce, mediation, and recovery guides that I hope you find useful.
Welcome back to the Michael Gaddis Show on AM 1170 The Answer. I am your host, Michael Gaddis of MichaelGaddis.com. My special guest today is Kevin Day of Day & Associates Incorporated, one of San Diego's and the country's top asset protection attorneys. For more information on Kevin Day, please visit day-law.com. So, Kevin, before the break, I mentioned that we were going to talk more specifically about asset protection as it relates to real estate, because obviously this show is centered around issues related to real estate. So, the most basic asset protection procedure for any homeowner is, of course, a homestead. Tell our listeners what a homestead is and how it works.
Absolutely. It is a fundamental planning tool that anybody that owns a home should have. It's like you got to have a will and trust. You've got to have a homestead. And it is, and you'll find from an asset protection point of view, what it's doing, it's putting a senior claim against the equity in your home that the law will recognize. There's a thing that we're going to be talking in our last segment about fraudulent conveyance. Doing lawsuit protection when you have a known and existing creditor is problematic. It's not impossible. There are some things to do, but there's certain lines you can't cross over. There's some exceptions to that, and the homestead is one of them. You could actually, on your way down to the bankruptcy court, drop off at the county recorder and record your homestead, and then go file your bankruptcy. And even though that technically is fraudulent conveyance, because you have a known existing creditor that you're about to have an hour later, a bunch, in filing the bankruptcy. So you can file that at any time, but you want to get it in play, because there are legal ways that a creditor can put liens against your home before you have put your homestead on it, like a mechanic's lien. Somebody does work on one of your properties. And so they're cheap and inexpensive to do. And essentially, now a lot of people have an image of what a homestead does, which is a misconception, but it's something that everybody should put in place.
And how much, again, does a homestead protect of your equity?
So that's the misconception. A lot of people, I put a homestead on my home and now they can't take it. What it is, and California particularly is fairly low, is that if you're a single person, you'll get $75,000. If you're a married couple, you'll get $100,000. If you're elderly and a couple of other qualifying things, you'll get $175,000. So let's say if you're a married couple and you have $300,000 worth of equity in your home and you have a judgment creditor, they can judicially foreclose that home and the court will give you $100,000 out of it. So they're still going to take your home and take $200,000 of equity. What they're essentially doing is saying, here's $100,000 so you can go rent an apartment and you're not a ward of the state now because we put you on the street. That's what the homestead does in California.
Well, you mentioned that a homestead can be filed even if you have a known creditor. But you did mention something else I think is really important, is that, and this is what everyone who's listening needs to really keep in mind, that if you do asset protection ahead of time, and let's say there's no known creditor, you can use these asset protection plans to your advantage. However, if you have a known creditor, you can't show up at Kevin's office and say, I got somebody who's suing me. Can you protect me? Is that right?
Right. We can do some strategies that might help in a settlement negotiation, but you can't do the lawsuit protection that you really...
So there'd be nowhere as advantageous as being, as I like to say, proactive rather than reactive.
Exactly. You want to do it while your legal seas are calm. Some businesses and industries, certain doctors, contractors, developers, they'll always have something little bubbling along. So you don't want to delay waiting for that perfect calm to do it. That's what we can work around and strategize around. But you want to put these things in place sooner than later. Absolutely.
Well, I think that's a really good point because, I always give people analogies. It's kind of like there's a train you're sitting on railroad tracks, and in the distance you can hear a train, but maybe it's going to go a different way. It's better for you to plan then than it is for you to plan when that train's 5 feet away from you getting ready to hit you, because it's a whole heck of a lot harder to jump off those tracks when that train's about ready to smack into you.
Exactly.
So do you guys you help people file homesteads?
Yes, we do. We usually will charge around $80 to do a homestead. For your listeners, we'll do it for $30.
So for $30, somebody can call you up and get a homestead put on their house.
Correct.
That sounds like a deal.
It is.
Well, you did mention also that a homestead is only limited to personal residence. How can you protect the equity in the home and the equity that you're building in your real estate investment properties?
Yeah. In mentioning, and we covered it a little bit earlier, equity stripping, but to your own estate plan and not to Union Bank. So we mentioned, even with the homestead, we have a legal system called first in time, first in right. And a lot of people feel, oh, well, I'm taking a note back on my property and I'm going to put it in my safe. And if there's any problems, I can come forward and prove that I've had this note against this property for 10 years. The law doesn't care about when the contract was signed. It's first in time to the public record. Did you give notice to the whole world? That's why somebody does work, paints your house, and I said green, and this is blue. And they say, well, this is teal, which has green in it. And you're not going to pay them because it's really blue. And they slap a mechanic's lien on your home, they're first in time. And so you want to get that homestead on first. Same with a full lawsuit protective strategy. If we created Golden Mountain Lending and with privacy about it, nobody knows that you're the legal owner. There's no reference to you in the public record. And we create Golden Mountain Lending, and it puts senior liens on your home after your homestead and against your rental properties. An asset isn't an asset if there's no equity in it. So somebody that's thinking that they're going to sue, especially malicious lawsuits, tenants that, the first thing when a tenant sues you, the lawyer should be looking at, do they have any priors? Often people have a legitimate thing that happened to them, but when they realize, oh, I can get $10,000, $20,000 for reinventing the same circumstances, you have these repeat offenders that are just looking for landlords to sue. And so what we want to do is have that kind of predatory lawsuit go away, not even happen, because they're going to be looking at you, oh, they have 4 properties, but Union Bank is on first and Golden Mountain Financial's on second. There's no equity there. There's nothing to sue. So the lawyer isn't going to take it, especially if they're a contingency fee lawyer.
I see. So what you're saying is you basically establish companies, and that particular company will put a lien on your house, like a HELOC. Is that what it's like, or it just says that there's been? Because you're not actually, when you say equity stripping, you're not actually taking the equity from your house and moving it somewhere. Is that right?
Not like in a bank sense. You want real consideration, and that's part of what we are working with a client. If they have $100,000 in their pocket they're about to put down on a home, we're going to say, put it in your little piggy bank company first and then borrow it over to give to Union Bank, so they have the first, and then Golden Mountain Lending has second. Too many people get to us late. They say, hey, I've got MBAs on my staff. How come nobody's told me about these strategies? I have an MBA. They never talked about strategies like this. They don't teach it in law school. But it's a thing that you can implement, even if we have a lot of people that have real estate, large estates, but they already have it in real estate. They're large estates that are cash poor. We can still create proper consideration to put liens against homes.
Well, let's say you have a client, like a physician client. Oh, it looks like we have a couple minutes left, so I'm going to ask you this question, and we might need to get to the answer afterwards. But let's say we have a young physician client just starting out, has a lot of big student loans. Maybe this physician started taking advantage of some real estate, because the market's down. Is there something that you could do for someone like that?
That is where we would want to segregate the real property, which is usually higher liability because of tenants. But I actually have somebody just worked with about a year and a half ago, obstetrician. They get 6 or 7 threats of lawsuits every year. It's just the nature of the business. They're a good physician. They did not want the real estate coming up at all. They didn't want to be the legal owner. So we put it in an irrevocable trust. So in a lawsuit deposition, they can say, I own my practice, my home, and my car. Nothing about the 7 other properties that they actually owned. Off the radar screen with an irrevocable trust.
Well, when we get back, we're going to continue our discussion with Kevin Day of Day & Associates. We're going to talk a little bit about pre-marriage divorce planning. You're listening to The Michael Gaddis Show on AM 1170, The Answer.
If you've got questions, we've got answers. AM 1170, The Answer.
What if you could safely grow your retirement account with a reasonable rate of return with no risk of principal? Hi, this is Dave Harris with Wealth Preservation, specializing in retirement income and insurance planning. There's nothing I enjoy more than helping San Diegans protect and grow their retirement savings. For over 4 decades, we have helped families achieve financial success. If you need help with your retirement planning, please visit me online or call me today. My number is 800-313-PLAN, or visit me online at wealthpreservationllc.com.
Hi, this is John Beaudry, the landscape contractor. There's nothing I enjoy more than helping San Diegans create gardens where they can spend time outdoors in our fantastic weather and save money on their water bills. I've helped hundreds of people create outdoor spaces where they can literally live outdoors. If you need help with your landscape, I'll be happy to discuss it with you for free. No strings attached, just great advice. My number is 619-929-9140, or visit me online at beaudrydesign.com. That's BEAUDRY design.com. I look forward to hearing from you.
Who would you rather have representing you when buying or selling your home? A real estate agent or a real estate and mortgage broker who is also a licensed California attorney? To sell your home for top dollar, or if you're facing a forced sale due to divorce, probate, short sale, or bankruptcy, you'll need the added value and marketing services of a realtor with the knowledge and experience of a licensed attorney and mortgage broker on your side.
Hi, I'm Michael Gaddis. I give you more, but it doesn't cost you more.
Visit michaelgaddis.com. That's michaelgaddis.com. DRE 0146543 and MLS 28001.
Your home should be a place that you love coming to. Hi, I'm Nikki Klug, interior designer, and there is nothing I enjoy more than helping San Diegans live in homes that they fall madly in love with. I've helped hundreds of homeowners experience a sense of luxury, rejuvenation, and inspiration in their everyday lives. If you need help creating a home that you love, please visit me online at nikkiklugdesign.com or call me at 619-948-7173.
Welcome back to the Michael Gaddis Show on AM 1170, The Answer. I am your host, Michael Gaddis of michaelgaddis.com. My guest today is Kevin Day of Day & Associates Incorporated, one of the country's top asset protection attorneys. For more information on Kevin Day, please visit day-law.com. Now, Kevin, before the break, I mentioned that I wanted to talk a little bit about, pre-marriage divorce planning. And I know for a lot of people who are in love out there, I know what you're thinking. pre-marriage divorce planning, we're in love. We don't need to worry about that. But as I mentioned a couple of shows ago, the statistics state that, 40 to 50% of marriages are going to end up in divorce. I know no one likes to hear that, but it's the truth. And if you are a high net worth or have assets of any type whatsoever, you should take that into consideration before you get married. So I know your firm drafts, premarital and postmarital agreements. Tell our listeners about those and how they work.
Yes, it's a contract between spouses. You can do it. They're stronger if they're done pre-marriage, but you can do them after marriage. Actually, just tactically, we have people that are still madly in love, but they have a major lawsuit, and one of the ways to an asset protection strategy is bifurcating high liability assets from low liability assets, and we can do that with a postnuptial agreement. It's a tactic. But pre-marriage, you want to create a contract that you can submit later in case there's a divorce, that you've worked out when everybody's in love, and you work out what someone thinks, that both parties think are equitable. And there's never a better time to do that. Even buy-sells. We do buy-sell agreements. Two people investing in a real property. If somebody gets a divorce, now there's a third party, or somebody files bankruptcy. Now you have a bankruptcy trustee as a new partner. So you want buy-sell agreements. A prenup is that sort of thing for a marriage.
Well, let me ask you a question, because I know we all listen to the news, and there's all these, celebrities and people who are getting divorces, and supposedly there's a prenup involved, and then they're trying to get around the prenup. How does that work? I mean, you'd think if you have an agreement in place, you should abide by the agreement. And I realize that people don't think about that later on when people now are worth billions of dollars. But how do people try to get around those things? What is that all about?
That's a brilliant question, because that's the rub. And everybody's always confused. Hey, the law says this. We had a marital agreement. How come things went awry? Because family court is not a court of law. It's a court of equity. In England, there are two different buildings. There are different judges. Here we put them all in one building, and if it's not a big enough town, it's the same judge that was hearing the breach of contract case later in the day, who's now doing the family law case. A contract is a thing of law. So you're submitting a contract, not in a court of law, but in a court of equity. Court of equity means the judge gets to make the decision that they want to. They are the law. So they'll say, hey, I want whatever the number is. I want $5 million. And the other spouse, he or she, says, well, the contract says you're only going to get $2 million. And, well, I want 5. And they should only get 2. Here's our contract. And the judge will say, give me the contract. I'll take it under advisement. Great. Now you, the party that wants $5 million, tell me why you should get it. And they make this argument. That is why irrevocable trusts, separate legal owners, are so powerful in this arena. Equitable judges, family court judges, know that change of ownership, properly timed prior to marriage, is such a fundamental thing in our legal system that they won't mess with it. So they will always challenge 1 out of 4, something like that. Prenups are monkeyed with, aren't recognized fully by the court. But you change ownership prior to marriage in an irrevocable trust, you've got divorce protection.
So let me get this straight. So what you're telling me, and I'm just believe me, I'm just trying to interpret what you're saying. You're saying that even if you have a prenuptial agreement and you're in divorce court, a divorce judge, a judge in divorce court, does not necessarily need to adhere to the terms of the prenup?
Exactly.
Wow.
That's why you hear all these cases. Trump's divorce a couple years ago, or a couple divorces ago, and it called for whatever the millions were, and she wanted more, and they said, and everybody was properly. She already was pretty wealthy. Everybody had proper, legal representation. And in California, you don't have a valid prenup unless both have counsel, and they have to sign the contract with their client. to assure, because it's always the argument, well, she had all the wealth or he had all the wealth and he wrote it up or she wrote it up and then just presented it to me, and there's a clause in there that said I had the legal opportunity, I consulted an attorney or had legal
but at the end of the day, it really doesn't even matter.
No.
I mean, he might take it into consideration about what the agreement was before they entered the marriage, but the judge doesn't have to adhere to it.
No, they'll always listen to an argument.
That's amazing. You would think that if you agree to something in writing before, that would be adhered to, but what you're telling me is it's not, and that's why we constantly hear about all these super wealthy people. People are challenging the prenup.
Exactly.
Wow.
Court of equity.
So what do you say to these people? I mean, when they come to you and say, hey, we want a prenup, I mean, do you tell them, hey, look, a prenup alone might not protect you?
Always. And a lot of people don't want to have a prenup. They're romantic, and they don't, just like you mentioned at the beginning, that they don't want to say, hey, will you marry me? And by the way, we need a prenup. And so this is a way that you can change ownership. And we recommend that you be honest and tell, hey, I've got this, a lawsuit-proof trust. I set it up, a year ago before we got married, before we're now getting married. And I just want you to know that. But you don't have to tell them. With a prenup, obviously, everybody has to sign, and everybody's lawyer has to sign for it to be valid. You can set up an irrevocable trust. They want to, your husband wants to divorce you, 6 months later, and say, oh, I also want to take your boutique that you have 6 stores of. I want 3 of them. And you can say, I didn't own those before we got married. I have a $150,000 a year salary. You might be able to garnish some of that, but you're not taking my companies because I didn't own them. Or you can't take my income properties. I didn't own them prior to marriage. They were in an irrevocable trust. Law is very clear.
So if somebody is listening right now and they're considering getting married, they might want to give you a call first.
Absolutely. Now, if you can broach it, we like belt and suspenders. We like spelling it out that the other party is aware that they have a trust. And if you can broach the prenup, we would do both.
But I mean, a
lot of people don't.
Somebody could call your office just, on the side, just to get some general advice from you, and whether they adhere to it or adhere to, well, I don't want one because I'm in love. I mean, at least they could get some professional advice from you before they go into a marriage.
Absolutely. My job as a lawyer is education. I don't want to just say, hey, I've got the answer, pay me money and let's create this. There's usually alternatives and there's pros and cons to each. I need to do a good job of educating so the client can choose.
Well, because I guess somebody could come to your office and that you could give them all this advice. They could say, I'm sorry, Kevin, I don't really want to do that. 3 years later, when they're a statistic, they could be like, God, I wish I would have listened to Kevin Day. I wish I would have listened to him.
We've had those clients.
I mean, seriously. I mean, but it's as we mentioned, and when we talked about divorces a couple of weeks ago, I mean, the statistics are so high, and because especially if you're getting married, and let's say you as you said, you own a business or you're you have a lot of assets, maybe some rental properties and stuff. It's not that you're not in love with somebody, but you still have to be again, that freight train you might hear it a long way away. But it's coming, or it could come. It might go on a different track, but it's better for you to plan, be proactive than be reactive. But I think part of the problem is they don't want to go to their significant other and say, hey, I love you, but can you sign right here?
Exactly.
Well, I want to thank my guest today, Kevin Day of Day & Associates. If you want to hear more about or learn more about Kevin Day, you can go to day-law.com. Well, that does it for today. I want to thank you all for listening to the Michael Gaddis Show on AM 1170 The Answer. I am here every Wednesday night at 8 p.m. discussing anything and everything related to real estate. If you want to contact me with questions or topics for the show, please feel free to email me at michael@michaelgaddis.com. Contact me via Twitter at MGJD Realty, or you could call me at 888-242-2272. Again, you have been listening to the Michael Gaddis Show on AM 1170 The Answer. Good night, San Diego.
Bond yields have been on the rise on concerns about a possible Fed rate hike in December. Conforming no-point 30-year fixed mortgage rates now average 3 7/8, with 15-year rates closer to 3 1/8. According to CoreLogic, nationwide home prices in September rose 6.3% compared to September of 2014. Meanwhile, on Realtor.com's list of the hottest markets, San Diego came in at number 6. Now for something completely different. Did you know that during World War I, American sauerkraut makers relabeled their product as Liberty Cabbage? It was due to concerns that the American public would reject a product with a German name. For more information on home loans or real estate, visit our website at aramco.biz or call me at 800-600-7021. This is Meron Aram for The Craig Sewing Show.